Hi, I'm Gabrielle and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about how to buy a teardown. Before we get started, your support is everything. If you want to be in the know weekly, don't forget to hit like and subscribe below so you can find out as soon as my next video drops. If you're struggling to find a decent home in your neighborhood, or whether it makes sense to renovate or remodel an existing home, perhaps your existing home, oftentimes it might make sense financially to purchase a teardown property. For some properties, it can actually be less expensive to purchase a teardown property than it can to renovate or remodel an existing home. Buying an existing home or a teardown follows the exact same process as buying any other house. However, there are some complications in purchasing a teardown and some things you want to be aware of in checking in advance of owning the house. The first thing you'll want to do before you even make an offer is to make sure that the property is financially viable. You have to factor in the cost of the land, construction, and financing isn't going to break the bank or leave you selling for less down the line. Because of their condition, teardowns should be priced below the average in that area. Whether the list price is fair ultimately depends on how much it will take to demolish the property and rebuild your dream home. As a rule of thumb, a teardown is viable if it can support a new house that's worth 2 to 3 times more than the sales price of the teardown. The second thing you want to do before you make an offer, check zoning and permitting. It's really important to make sure you know how the property is classified because ultimately that will determine how big of a house you're able to build, on how much of the plot of land you're able to build, and what you're going to be able to include in that design. It's important to note that structures located in historic areas are probably going to have strict rules on maintaining the history of the neighborhood. And oftentimes there are pieces of historic homes that are not allowed to be torn down. Most municipalities are not going to let you just tear down a house without any permits. And also, if you're looking in a place that has an HOA or a homeowners association, it's likely that you're going to need approval from the HOA before you can tear down the house. Be sure to make your offer contingent upon the necessary permits and consents and factor in the cost and time into your offer. The next thing you want to be careful of is inspection contingencies. It might seem counterintuitive, but it is important to do the proper and necessary inspections prior to owning the teardown. I would highly recommend building in as much time as you need to make sure you get a survey and a plat done, because this could lead to major issues in development down the line if you have any easements on the land. If there are any toxic materials in the house, like asbestos or mold, even though it's all being torn out, it's still going to require removal, so you'll have to factor that into your overall cost as well. And it's just important to make sure you get the proper building inspectors in there in advance so you know what you're going to be dealing with. It's also important as you're doing inspections to make sure that you have someone who comes in and helps you with grading, because I've often heard from builders that when they first started out, they did not think that there were going to be issues with foundation or the grading of a house. This is definitely something that you'll want to know in advance of owning the home, preferably within the first couple weeks, building in a contingency so that you know if you're going to have an additional $100,000 to $200,000 of foundation repair or grading repair that you'll need to make. The last thing you'll need to consider is your financing options. Conventional mortgages do not allow you to tear down the existing mortgaged home because you're ultimately destroying the collateral for the loan. Therefore, you'll have to finance the loan either using other collateral that you might own or through a construction to permanent loan option. The construction to permanent loan option will release cash through various phases of the project and then roll into a much larger permanent loan at the end of construction. If you're working with a builder or a developer on this teardown, ask them if they have any construction to permanent lenders that they could recommend. And it's also important to do some homework and talk to several lenders from your own network. Just make sure that you're understanding the process up front and choosing the best financing option that's going to work for you and hopefully save you some money in the end. That's all I've got. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you next week. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe below, and thank you again.